Hello, everybody, and welcome to the Paranormal Guys. I, of course, am Sport Cat Glenn Jackson. I'm here with you tonight. We've got a couple great guests lined up. First things, let's get some things out of the way. Cheyenne is at work tonight, so I don't have her. I want everybody to send their thoughts and prayers to Amanda. She had a loss of a family member, and so she is out. And I believe Aaron is at work also, and I don't know where Bobby is, so he may be in jail somewhere. I want to thank Yergs Radio, Ross at yergsradio.com. We are live on Yergs Radio and Rainbow Radio. And hello, Wendell. And we are also proud to announce that we will be rebroadcasting on the Bigfoot Radio Network Mondays, Wednesdays, and Fridays at 7 p.m. So go check it out there. Internet radio is the way to go. Yergs Radio, Bigfoot Radio. And of course, you can find me on the Thin Line Rock Station Tuesdays and Thursdays, spinning some hit records. Well, I play music and talk a lot. So that's what I do. All right. So I don't want to talk too long, but I wanted to get those announcements out of the way. We have a great guest. He's from up north. I told him that he needed to take his weather back. Mark is with us. Mark is an author from Canada. Hello, Mark.
Hey, how are you doing?
I'm doing well, sir. How are you?
Good, good. Yeah, sorry about that cold weather that we've been sending down there. It's actually warming up here finally, but we've had a lot of snow the last little while.
Well, you know, the annoying part to me is I'm originally from Atlanta, but I'm here in Knoxville helping some family out. Mm-hmm. And Atlanta South got snow, but Knoxville in the mountains got nothing.
Is that right?
We just got the cold. I was miserable.
Well, I guess that's a blessing too. You know, you don't have to shovel it. I was shoveling snow in 3 different places this morning. Our house, an aunt's house, and a father-in-law's house. So,
oh, goodness. That's hard work, let me tell you.
It can be if it's heavy snow, yeah.
Yeah. That as a paramedic, I've run many calls of people having heart attacks after shoveling snow.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, because it's easy to overdo.
Yes, and you get more dehydrated in winter. People don't realize that. So just all goes out your body, and you don't sweat. So
yeah.
Mark, you have had such a great career. I did a little bit of snooping on you. You've had a radio career. You're an author. You've had several, and you even wrote some books about cooking. I meant to ask you about that earlier. Mm-hmm. You're a historian. You love wordplay. I bet you're great at Scrabble. So tell us, first off, tell us a little bit about yourself, and then what got you into, you had a broadcast career, and then you switched to doing some writing.
Yeah. I'll say too, I've got 3 dogs in here with me, so if you hear any whining or that's what it is. I'm gonna let this one out actually.
Mine is wandering around here somewhere begging for a treat, I'm sure. So
our whole family loves dogs. We've always had them. I got into radio almost by accident. What happened was I finished my PhD at the University of Toronto. I focused on 16th-century English literature, like Shakespeare and Shakespeare's contemporaries, that sort of thing. And then I got a job in Winnipeg, in Manitoba, north of Minnesota. And it happened to be the university happened to be right beside the CBC building. CBC is Canada's national broadcaster. And so I thought, I'm new to the city. I want to learn about it. So the first thing I did is I tried to find the origins and the histories behind some of the major street names in Winnipeg. And Winnipeg has a lot of history. Fur traders through there. The Hudson Bay Company was established there. It's kind of a confluence of Europeans and Indigenous people. I looked up, researched some of the names, and then I approached CBC and said, hey, how would you like me to talk about the names of streets in Winnipeg? And they did that. They were happy with it. And they said, what else can you do? So I said, well, I can talk about any kind of words, every week I would talk about sort of a different theme of words. And that went on for, quite a few years. Like I think in total I did more than about 100 um, sessions, where I would write and broadcast something. Really enjoyed it. I wouldn't want to do it now because I have to get too extroverted, and to do that every week, I just don't have that energy anymore. I'm 61 now, and it's it's hard to get that much energy. And then that turned into my first book because a publisher in Winnipeg happened to hear me talking about words and approached me and said, "Hey, what if you wrote a book about word origins?" And I said, "Sure." And I thought about it, and what would be a good topic? Well, something that everybody does is eat. So the first book I wrote was the origins and histories of food words. Um, so there's about 1,000 words in that book. It's actually going to be it's going to be reprinted this year. Another publisher has picked it up. So it's all kinds of words like jambalaya and when you saute something, and origins of hot dog, wiener, everything like that. So yeah, that was my first book, and then that led to another book about the origins and histories of words about love and sex. Um, and then let's see, going way back, 1999, I wrote, well, actually 1998, but it was published in 1999. I wrote a book about how people at the ends of previous centuries, 1899, 1799, so on, how they celebrated their end of their century or what they wrote about it. And what was interesting is it paralleled ours quite a bit. Remember the Y2K stuff? Everybody was thinking, oh, the world's going to crash. Didn't. Same thing at the end of 1899. They had fears about what they called devolution, not evolution, but devolution. They feared that humans, because we were doing more sedentary things, that we were going to start to devolve and go back to more monkey-like creatures.
Interesting.
Maybe that's happened to some people. I don't know. And then the other nonfiction book that I did was about food culture in Shakespeare's England. So yeah, what they ate in the 16th century, how they prepared it, manners, customs, all kinds of things. That was fascinating. Like just things like the big the courtiers, the people who were rich and had a lot of money, they had huge kitchens in their estates, and in those kitchens they had fireplaces that you could put a school bus in them. These fireplaces were just so huge. And one of the things that I liked, I mentioned I've got dogs here, is that they had the spits. They'd put all kinds of venison and things on it, and to keep it turning, they had little treadmills, and they had dogs that would stand on the treadmills and walk, and that would make the spit turn. So there were dogs in the kitchens back then. And dogs had another use too. I'll just mention one other thing too. If they didn't have like napkins to wipe their hands, well, they would call a dog over and wipe their hands on its back.
My mom would have shot me.
Yeah, so those were my nonfiction books. But yeah, after writing those, my wife and I adopted 4 older kids, and they took all of our energy and attention, as any kids do. But these, if kids are adopted at older ages, it means they've come from a place of trauma. They're not taken away from their birth family for no reason. And so they had trauma that we had to help them work through. So our writing careers, my wife is a writer as well, a poet, that just went on hold for like 17 years. And then as they got older and more independent, started to want to write again. So that's why I wrote a young adult dystopian novel. It's this one. I'll hold it up. It's called The Headmasters. Where's my camera? And maybe you can see on the cover. I really like this cover. I love what the designer did. It looks like there's sort of a creature, like some sort of bug-like creature, on the back of the young woman, and those are the headmasters. The headmasters are these creatures that have appeared sort of in a post-apocalyptic setting, and they attach themselves to humans and they control humans for about 18 hours a day. They've done this for like 60 years, and everybody's feeling extremely like they can't imagine how they're gonna defeat these things. But luckily, the main character, Maple, she's a young woman. She decides she's going to try to do it, and well, I guess it's not giving something away to say she's successful eventually.
Cool.
Yeah, yeah. So yeah, and I'm writing another. I've finished another novel, another dystopian novel. I love dystopias. Even on TV, like I've been watching The Last of Us. I think it's just such a great series on. I forget if it's on Netflix or Prime. What's the other one that's on right now? I can't remember. And I watched The Walking Dead for many seasons until finally I thought, oh, this is just they've lost their way. So I kind of stopped. But
My goodness, couldn't they have shot them all by now?
well, I always thought, again, being from Canada, I thought, why are you people staying down in Georgia or wherever they were? Come up to Canada, wait for the winter. All the zombies will freeze. And,
Easy hunting.
Exactly. But yeah, so yeah, I love dystopias. I read a lot of dystopian literature. Just today, I starting to reread one of my favorites. It's called Station 11 by another Canadian author, Emily St. John Mandel. And I think Station 11 was made into a series. I don't know if it was on Netflix, but a couple of years ago, it was made into a series as well. Yeah, so dystopias. I'm interested in continuing to write in that genre until I don't know, until I get tired of it, I guess.
Yeah. Well, it sounds as though you've had. I don't know how you went from food to sex to dystopian, but I'm with it.
Well, I think and in fact, I've got this Latin epigram at the beginning of one of my books, the book about sex words and love words, and basically translated into English, it means nothing is foreign to me. Actually, I forget which Latin author said that, which Roman author said that, but basically what he means is there's nothing off limits. We should be learning about everything.
Yes.
And I really believe that. So I love learning. I love teaching myself. I love learning from really good teachers, really good educators. There's nothing worse than a bad educator, because that can just turn people off of learning. But yeah, I've always loved learning, and that's what I want to keep doing till I draw my last breath.
I mean, I agree. I think we should all learn something new every day.
Yeah.
Even if it's just a new word.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
You were talking about The Walking Dead. You reminded me of a story I read. Gosh, I'm having a hard time thinking of the author's name of The Walking Dead. He's a hero of mine in so many ways, because he bought the Transformers, but that's a whole other geek side story. He teased that he was going to end it one day, and everybody's like, "Well, are we ever going to know what started it? How are you going to end it?" And he come up with like a joke a lot like politicians do, and then the media runs with it. He said, well, Rick's just going to wake up in the hospital one day and realize it was all a dream. Oh my God, that pissed off so many of his fans. And it was just a joke,
Right. Yeah, I mean, that worked with the Bob Newhart show, going way back 30 years.
Oh my gosh, I forgot about that. Yes.
That was good, because he was making fun of that trope. But yeah, they never did explain what caused it. And I think that's if you write a post-apocalyptic novel, you got to go in one of two directions. You either have to not explain what's caused the catastrophe, or you have to explain it in great detail. And I'm in the first kind. I don't really want to spend a lot of time explaining what's caused the world to collapse. I just want to talk about how people behave and how they interact with each other um, after that happens.
Now, when you come up with these ideas, do you have like, I know my English teacher will shoot me, but do you have an outline, or do you have or is it just you kind of free flow it?
Well, with my nonfiction books, I had oh yeah, very very detailed outlines, and my study, not this room, but my study at the time back in Winnipeg, it was covered. Every wall had tiny little cubby holes on it, and I would put slips of paper into it, various things. Um, and so it took a great deal of organizing and outlining. With my novel, and the ones I'm continuing to write, I kind of come up with an idea, sort of an initial idea, and then I think about how do I want this to end, and then I just feel my way through it. So I don't really come up with an outline. Um, and sometimes that means, I go on down pathways that, I got to abandon. But I just don't think I could write fiction with an outline. Some people do. Um, but
Mhm.
yeah, people, I mean, the distinction that they talk about is, what is it? Planners and pantsters. Pantsters are people who write by the seat of their pants.
That would be me.
Yeah, yeah, me too. Me too, yeah.
Now, when you develop your characters do you base them off of people you've known, or do you how do you pull from to get your characters?
Yeah, yeah, I'm really glad you asked that question because, as I was mentioning, the hero, the protagonist of the Headmasters, her name is Maple. She's about 12 when the novel begins and 20 when it comes to its end. And I drew so much inspiration from our four kids because, I was mentioning they were adopted. They had to work through so much trauma, and they're just so inspiring because they're so resilient. Just seeing them come through that, and I took that resilience and other qualities that I've seen in them, and I kind of imbued it into the character of Maple. So in a way, the character of Maple is kind of like based upon all four of our kids. Maybe one in particular, our youngest daughter in particular. I sort of had her in mind because she's the most stubborn,
We
and
all have one.
she's kind of those 1940s film noir movies where there's like the dame, the tough dame. She's
Yep.
kind of like that. Once when she was only just shortly after we adopted her, so she was maybe about 8 or so, she was on the sidewalk. It was summer, and she was making the hopscotch thing with chalk, and this young teenager, 17, 18-year-old guy comes along, and he's trying to look kind of tough, and she says to him, "Move along, boy, move along."
That's great.
Yeah, yeah. So yeah, I drew on our kids, and the novel is set in northern Ontario in the Canadian Shield, and I love that part of Canada. It's beautiful, it's remote and rugged. Um, yeah, and it was a lot of fun just to imagine, to think about that part of the world, part of Canada, as I was writing, and also going there to explore certain parts of it from time to time too. We have driven across the Canadian Shield a number of times because I grew up in Saskatchewan, the prairies, and my siblings are still out there. So almost every summer we would drive through the Canadian Shield. Only in the summer though. I wouldn't want to do it in the winter. Uh,
No,
yeah.
no, no. I was a flight medic and got to spend quite a bit of time flying patients in and out of Canada. It's very beautiful, very cold. I got stuck in Red Deer, Manitoba, and
Oh yeah,
discovered what -50 was in a blizzard.
yeah,
That was not fun, but
yeah,
I it was so cold I couldn't light my cigar. I smoked cigars at the time.
yeah,
It
yeah,
was so cold I couldn't light my cigar.
yeah,
It was
yeah.
extremely disappointing for a Southern boy.
Yeah,
Uh,
yeah, yeah. When it gets below -40, it hurts to breathe. Because that
it does.
just coming into your lungs, oh yeah, I mean, on the one hand, I love it. It's just so pure, but at the same time, you don't want to experience that, for
Oh
a
no.
long time.
Well, we had we had a rough touchdown in our Learjet, and nitrogen fills the tires and aircraft.
Uh-huh.
Well, when we touched down, because of the temperature and the contact, it blew every tire on the
I bet.
Learjet.
Yeah. Yeah.
And none of our pilots had experienced, I guess, that cold before.
Mm-hmm.
And there was one Learjet mechanic in Manitoba,
Mm-hmm.
and a blizzard came up right behind us, and so we were stuck.
Yeah.
And the people were very nice, except for the taxi driver. I think he may have been on crack, but the people were very nice. The hotel was very nice. There was like, well, we've got the hotel, we've got limited food because of the blizzard, and then if you cross the interstate, there's a truck stop.
Mm-hmm.
So we
Mm-hmm.
had truck stop food.
Yep.
But it was great. The weirdest part to me was when you would go outside in the wind and your eyes would freeze, like
Yeah.
little icicles in your
Yeah.
eyes. It was
Yeah.
the
On your
craziest thing
eyebrows.
I'd ever experienced.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah. Yeah.
yeah. So, but
Yeah. 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 I've traveled quite a bit in the States. I think I've got a couple of favorite cities that we've visited. I love San Antonio in Texas.
mhm,
I
very
love
beautiful.
New Orleans. Um, and Los Angeles. We were there a few years ago. Um, Went to Houston. We couldn't find anything that interested us in Houston. I don't know. Maybe we just weren't looking in the right place. But
Yeah, it's kind of a bland town. So,
yeah, yeah.
um, highly recommend Key West.
Key West. Okay.
Highly recommend it.
Yeah.
And if you really want to experience it, fly into Miami and then drive the 100 miles.
Is that right?
And I know that sounds crazy because it's almost 100 miles of bridge.
Uh-huh.
Gorgeous.
Is that
Gorgeous.
right? Well, check that
Yeah.
out. Yeah.
Yeah. My son and his wife had decided, he was my youngest, mostly raised in Atlanta. And
Hmm.
he had said that him and of course, his wife now is from Knoxville here.
Yeah.
And he had said, well, we don't see enough snow. I want to live somewhere where there's snow. And I'm like,
Uh-huh.
well, move back to the mountains.
Uh-huh.
And he calls me one day and he goes, Dad, I got a job offer. I'm like, oh, he goes, yeah, we're going to Vermont. And I'm like,
Hmm.
wait, what? Wait,
Yeah.
what? Very beautiful. I had never seen the Green Mountains. We didn't fly in and out of Vermont very often. And very beautiful. He calls me his, I don't know, first, I guess it was winter. It wasn't long after he moved there. And he said, oh, they're expecting a small snow or a light snow. And I said, oh, well, what's that? He said, 4 feet. And I'm like, I'll see you in July.
Yeah. 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 Vermont is pretty far north, and I don't know if a lot of, maybe most Canadians, maybe most Americans don't know this, but like the southernmost part of Canada is a place called I can't remember what it is now. Anyways, it's even further south than I am, and there's 20 U.S. states that are actually, part of them is further north than that southern part of Canada. Maine, of course, probably all of Maine and probably most of Vermont, and even the very, very top part of California is further north than this furthest south part of Canada. Yeah, it seems kind of strange in a way, because the Great North,
Yeah. And Minnesota or Michigan, you have to go through Canada to get to the one little, it's Michigan. You have to get through Canada to get to the little segment of Michigan. So yeah. It's sometimes made me wonder, how did they form all this stuff?
All the borders, you mean? Like
Yeah.
Yeah, I know. Because some of them are kind of strange. Like Idaho has this tiny little narrow strip that goes all the way up to Canada. I think it borders with Alberta. Why that is the case, I don't know. Maybe there's a river that runs through there or something. I mean, the province I grew up in, Saskatchewan. If you look on the map, it is the most rectangular region, not region. What am I thinking of? Rectangular province, state. That kind of thing. Anywhere in the world. I mean, it doesn't deviate. And when you go there, like all the roads, I mean, everywhere, it's it's like living on a chessboard, kind of. Everything is up and down, left, right,
That's right.
and very flat, of course.
Chris in the comments says if you want to find a drunk dinosaur in a hurricane, Key West is the place to be.
Right?
He is referring to we had during the hurricane that came up through actually through Georgia and in the Carolinas.
Yeah.
We had a show that Wednesday night, and we didn't know if we were going to be live.
Hmm.
And the guests had all canceled. So I just said, well, you know what? We're going to go live and see what happens. And so I started going around on different cameras to see, what we can see with the weather.
Yeah.
And there's a camera on the most southern point of the United States. And they've got a big buoy there. Yeah. And we're watching it, and these waves are coming up over it, and it's raining, and lightning, or you can see the lights flashing, and out of nowhere, and I've got a TikTok of it and a YouTube short of it, out of nowhere, this guy in a blow up, or gal, I don't know, blow up dinosaur suit waddles up. And I'm like, what? So we spent about 20 minutes watching them not get blown out to sea.
Yeah. Yeah. People do crazy things. I couldn't do that. I don't like storms. We were in where were we? We were in was it Washington? Anyways, and a hurricane came up. I mean, it ended up not causing a lot of damage, but it was scary to be there in the middle of that. Just so much rain came down.
Oh yeah, they're scary storms. I would prefer a hurricane over a tornado. Living in the South, the tornadoes are the worst. So
yeah.
I would prefer
we don't. I mean, we don't get a lot of that. We where I am right now, we're never in danger from hurricanes. We're too far inland. Tornadoes sometimes, and even about 15 years ago, there was a slight earthquake around here near Toronto. Actually, it was in Quebec, but we could feel it here in Ontario. I never thought I would experience an earthquake, but
there was one off of Delaware, Maine, just recently, like in the past week.
Yeah.
So, yeah. I experienced a small one here in East Tennessee, and it was funny. I wasn't raised around them. I didn't know about them, but it was real late at night, and I could hear it coming, and it sounded. I don't know if you've ever been on the top of a mountain when the wind comes up over the mountain and then goes back down. It's like a rolling noise, almost like a wave.
Yeah.
And I said, so that's an earthquake, and you could hear it almost approaching like a wave. It was the weirdest, and then the house started. It wasn't for East Tennessee, it might have been a 2 point something. It was enough to shake the the ceiling fans and stuff, but it was weird. So I would not want to live in an area with those. The unpredictable weather, I think, would be the worst. So Now, in your novel, do you have unpredictable weather? Has the cataclysmic event caused any type of weather?
Not exactly. I mean, the weather, as it is actually the case in the novel, it's the extremes. Like we were talking about in the winter, it's -40. I mean, they've lost all ability to measure things like that. And in the summer, it gets very hot and very muggy, and the black flies are just awful. So.
Oh yes, my son has told me.
Yeah. So the weather and the ruggedness is an important part of the novel, because I wanted the setting, like the setting it's a brutal place, and I wanted that to sort of parallel the headmasters themselves, these creatures that are ruthless, and they're quite brutal. The place, I couldn't imagine setting the headmasters in any other place. It had to be in that remote, rugged area. Yeah.
With the headmasters, are they like extraterrestrial? Are they, what type of creature are they?
Well, I don't explain it in detail, but I think what I imply is that when this cataclysmic event occurred, which was caused by humans trying to sort of capture some energy from the sun, solar flares, that kind of thing, something opened up between our universe and another dimension, another realm, and that's how these creatures arrived. They didn't want to be here. They don't want to be here either. But the only way they can communicate with each other now that they're here is by attaching themselves to us. And then when we are sleeping, they sort of form a collective consciousness through our minds, and that's how they communicate with each other. Um, and they basically enslave us. And the one really problem that the humans have is that even if somebody thinks about trying to take off their headmaster, the headmaster will sense it because they're kind of tapped into the person's brain, and they will kill them before they can do that. So you can't even think about trying to fight back. So that's the dilemma that they're in.
Oh,
Yeah.
wow. What well, while we're on the kind of the subject, what do you think about ETs and aliens and all that? Do you think that's a thing or
Yeah. Well, I mean, I guess I think two things. I think on the one hand that all of the the sightings of UFOs, or what's the new acronym that they use?
uh UAP?
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, yeah, phenomenon. Yeah, um, I doubt if they are actual alien visitors. But having said that, I mean, the universe is vastly huge and getting bigger. It's always expanding, of course, and I think there must be other life somewhere. I mean, and I think it must over time. I mean, the universe is nearly 14 billion years old. I assume that it's intelligent life has arisen somewhere else, or if it hasn't yet, if we're the first, I think it will. The conditions will be right,
Yeah.
or if one believes in a creator, why wouldn't seems like a big waste of the universe, not to create other beings.
Yeah, it's funny. I always say, how can we possibly imagine we're alone? Is I mean, you can't even fathom
Yeah.
the sense of it. And let's just put it to something simple we can understand. A lot of people like fish tanks. Some
Hmm.
people like goldfish. Some people like betas. Some people like sharks.
Hmm.
Maybe if there's a great creator, maybe he likes other fish.
Sure. Yeah.
And who am I to say? I mean,
Yep.
I don't know.
Yep. Yep. But whether we'll ever be able to contact them, I don't know. Again, the distances are so vast. We'll never be able to even approach light speed, I think, from the bit of physics that I understand. So, I mean, can you imagine having a conversation with somebody and it takes 50 years to send a single message back and forth? That would be a slow conversation.
Yeah. Hi, Bob. Oh, Bob's dead. It's Tom. Oh, wait a minute. Tom's dead.
Yeah, yeah.
So, yeah.
But who knows? I mean, I think Star Trek, you know, was right about a lot of things. A lot of the technologies that were envisioned. And they also talk about wormholes and things like that. So who knows? Maybe that will be a way of traveling
Yeah.
across vast distances. Who knows?
You never know.
Yeah.
And with AI now,
Hmm.
that's either our headmasters or that may be the solution.
I think you're absolutely right. I mean, there's no stopping it. Some people are saying, "Oh, we got to slow down." Well, that's not going to happen. I mean, the people that are creating AI, it's for them, it's they just want it to get bigger and faster, and that's what's going to happen.
Yeah.
And yeah, I mean, on the one hand, it kind of terrifies me. Um,
Yes.
I do think that in the not so far future, like maybe 20 years, 30 years, what it means to be human is going to be very, very different. You know,
Mhm.
um, we're going to have little things. We'll have I don't know, we'll have the internet, connected into our brains somehow. Who knows? We can't even imagine it.
Yeah.
Um, but I do think it's going to transform who we are. I don't know, for better
Agreed.
or worse, but yeah.
Yeah. Well, I read an article a few weeks ago, and I can't remember if it was Google. It was one of the major computer companies,
Hmm.
and they have a computer that is so fast
Hmm.
that they say it operates in a different dimension.
Yeah.
I don't
Yeah.
even know that I know what that means,
Yeah.
but they say that it gets data and information from other places
Yeah.
unknown. And I'm like, what is this, like a AI Ouija board? I mean, what, what the heck is it?
Yeah.
So,
Yeah. It's beyond me. I mean, I don't. I mean, the things that exist so far, like the Chat GPT, and what was the one that just DeepSeek, that came into
yes.
the news just recently. I mean, they're called artificial intelligence. I mean, I don't think they're anywhere close to being conscious yet, but I do think that's going to happen. I think that whatever processes are in our brains that generate consciousness, I kind of have a feeling that it will be possible to do that too with, ones and zeros at some point, you know? Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. I agree. I agree.
Yeah.
Well, one other thing I like to always ask our guests, and you sounded like you had a great story, so I'm going to lead you some extra time here with this. Um, is we always, of course, with the paranormal guys, I consider ourselves an entertainment and a paranormal show because we have athletes, authors, actors, musicians, Tom down the street, anybody that wants to come on, really. And but we always ask, have you ever had an experience with a Bigfoot or something touched you in a movie theater? Or, well, wait a minute, maybe that's not the right question, but some kind of experience. Well, if you were to Diddy film, it's highly possible, but
Well, I have had one significant one, and this goes back when I was probably about 20, I guess, maybe 19 even. And I was living on my own in an apartment in Regina, Saskatchewan, going to university there. It was a old apartment, built in the 20s or something like that, apartment building. And I remember going out with a friend. We went, had a couple donuts and a cup of coffee or something like that, went back to my place, got into bed, fell asleep. And then being shaken awake. I'm living by myself. I'm being shaken awake and I'm kind of groggy. And I think, okay, Kevin, that was the guy I went out for coffee. Kevin, how'd you get in here? What are you doing here? You know, and then I realized it wasn't Kevin. It was a grizzled old man um, who was saying, hey, buddy, how did you get in here? And I kind of looked around and, I could see that the layout of the apartment was the same as mine, but the stuff in it was very different, wasn't mine. The most significant different thing was he had like a sawhorse and a saddle on it. He was probably an old cowboy or something like that. And I'm waking up, I'm starting to freak out. I realize, well, first of all, I don't have any clothing on and I'm under a rug. So I think one of two things happened. Either I was sleepwalking and I left my apartment and I went up to the next floor because it was the apartment above me. That's where I was. Um, and he had left his door open and I walked in without waking him and got under this rug right beside his bed. And the fact that he woke me up shaking, hey buddy, how'd you get in here? I can't imagine doing that. I would have grabbed a frying pan or something before
yeah.
before I did that. Um, But he said, "No, I always lock my door." And sure enough, when I went to leave, the little chain thing was on. So that would have meant that I not only came in, sleepwalked in, but then it was unlocked and I locked it. I mean, that could have happened, but it sure feels like the other option might be true, which was that somehow I just, floated up through the floor. Um, because my bed was exactly under where I ended up under this rug. And I still have no idea what happened. I've never sleepwalked again since then. Um, the guy, he lent me a pair of pants so that I could get back to my apartment below him. Remember, the next day I just wanted to forget about it, so I took him his pants back. I didn't even knock on the door. I just hung them on his doorknob. Um, but that has made me that was such a significant event that made me think, it's made me realize even more, I guess, that there are things that happen and things, I don't know, energies and things like that that we are not aware of. What did Hamlet says? There are more things in your philosophy than anybody can think of. I really, really believe that what we see in the world, in the universe, is just a slice of things, and there's a whole other spectrum of things that can happen. So
Yeah.
yeah, that was the paranormal thing that happened to me, and it freaked me out. I
Yeah.
for the next 2 weeks after that, I actually tied one hand to my bedpost because I was so afraid of.
So afraid.
Yeah.
That's yeah, that's unusual. Well, I'll give you a different observation. The first thing that come to mind is I've interviewed a lot of people who claim, now I can't say if it's true, uh, to have been abducted by
Hmm.
aliens.
Hmm.
And I have heard that aliens will make little mistakes, like they will put them back in either the wrong place,
Mm-hmm.
or they'll time slip and they'll end up being back before they left. Or
Right.
and like I said, I have no idea if any of this is true, but
Hmm.
I've heard similar stories that that something like that, and
Yeah.
that would freak me out just as much.
Yeah. 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 I don't know what to think of that. I mean, so many people have reported that. Part of me thinks, okay, if I was an alien species that has the ability to cross the galaxy and get here, wouldn't I have better things to do than, abduct a human and probe them or whatever? I think something similar about ghosts. I don't doubt that there's a spiritual realm. Um, but if I were a ghost, I wouldn't be, wanting to just haunt somebody. I think I would have better things to do. Uh, but I suppose, a ghost can be sort of trapped or something like that. So I don't know. But I do think that realm does exist. Yeah.
Have, Chris says donuts and coffee are usually not the start to stories like that.
Yeah,
Jack
no,
Daniels.
no, there was none of that. There was none of that. It was just coffee and donuts. Yeah.
Well, apparently here in the South, you've never heard of cow tipping. So sometimes even humans.
I'd forgotten about cow tipping. Yeah, yeah. Well, and crop circles as well.
Yeah.
Are those reported down in the States?
I don't think as much as they used to be.
Yeah, yeah.
Um, I won't say no. Now, of course, like you were talking about earlier, the drones, and
Hmm.
everybody's afraid that it's aliens coming. And then I
Hmm.
heard one lady say that she's communicated with them, and it's not that they're coming; it's they're actually leaving us because we're about to do something stupid.
Hmm.
Which, well,
Yeah,
you never know.
that's an
So
interesting idea. Yeah,
we did just move the atomic clock 1 minute forward, or was
yeah,
it? We moved it forward. So, but yeah.
yeah,
So,
yeah,
no,
yeah.
it can't be a minute because we'd be dead. So yeah,
Right.
they moved it. I think like a
They,
second or
they
something.
they're like rats fleeing the sinking ship, maybe. That kind of thing.
Exactly. Exactly. Well, like when I'm a firefighter, we're going into a building, and the bugs and the mice and rats are running out. So
Oh, yeah, yeah. Can I tell you another story that reminds me of? You still got some time?
absolutely, you still
Okay.
have 15-ish minutes. And
Okay.
this is all
So
you.
so this didn't happen to me, but it was reported to me by an old guy that I was with my parents and we were in line to go eat something, and this old guy happened to be in front of us. We started talking with him, and it was in Saskatchewan, the prairies, and he was old enough that he could recall back when prairie fires were not uncommon. And one of the things he said was that back then, by law, every person had to have matches with them. And you might think, well, why? Why would there are all these prairie fires? Well, the reason is that if you see a prairie fire coming towards you, what you do is you burn an area, in a controlled way around you, so that the flames come towards you, and then the fire goes around you, and you don't get burnt up. So it makes sense. And he said that this happened to him when he was a kid. He saw the big prairie fire, 40-foot high flames coming at him. The wind is 40 miles an hour. He burns out this area. He's terrified. He doesn't know what's going to happen. He sees the flames approaching, and then he also sees in front of the flames all these animals running away from it, like deer and rabbits and I don't know, raccoons and things like that. And they all come to this area that he's burnt out, and they kind of surround him, and the fire goes around them. And then he said it was like the animals, animals that sometimes would have been predator and prey. He said it was almost like they were looking at each other, like, okay, let's just disperse. So
Nothing to see here.
yeah, I thought that was just such an amazing story, such an amazing thing to experience. I've never seen a prairie fire. I mean, now in the prairies of Canada, we don't have that kind of what did they call it, tall grass anymore, or it's not common anymore. So you don't get those kinds of prairie fires. Um, but yeah, back then, and then of course there was the dirty 30s, in Canada during the Depression. That was clouds of dust that you couldn't see across the road, and then clouds of grasshoppers that you couldn't see the sun. Awful. I don't know how they survived it. You know, my
Yeah,
grandparents. Yeah,
and we couldn't live without our smartphone.
that's right. That's right. Yeah, yeah,
Well,
yeah. Times change.
yeah, absolutely. What up there where you are? Do you have or have you heard any reports of Bigfoot, Sasquatch?
Not around here on the West Coast. In British Columbia, I think that's where I have heard about it. Maybe on the East Coast as well, but I've never heard any reports of that, like in the Canadian Shield. Um, there is a lake in the Canadian Shield, though, where there's, what's it called? Ogopogo or something like that. It's kind of like a Loch Ness monster that people sometimes say, oh, we saw this big sea monster in this lake. So there's been reports of that, but I can't recall what the name of the lake is. Um, and then there's also some other spooky stuff. There have been people living and buried in the Canadian Shield going back 10,000 years. Indigenous people, and there are. Um, I think there are reports of paranormal things that are associated with that. You know, um, but yeah, no Bigfoot around here, except my son. My eldest son has like size 17 feet. So
Goodness, and we'll probably eat you out of house and home as well. So
yeah, yeah, he sure did. Yeah,
growing boy, yeah, yeah. Uh, well, in then you hear a lot of people talking about going even further north, like
hmm
Antarctica,
yeah,
that there's things under the ice,
yeah,
and that the government's what I don't even know what government's in charge up there, but they know about the stuff that's going on,
yeah,
and
yeah, yeah, yeah. And recently they discovered there was a what was his name? I'm getting old. My brain is not working. Anyways, he was trying to find the Northwest Passage. He wanted to be able to get through, all of that so that he could go from the Atlantic Ocean to the Pacific Ocean. And if global warming continues, that might be possible in some time. But he got locked in the ice with his ship and like 200 sailors on board, and like 3 years they were locked in the ice, and they somehow managed to survive. They had a lot of dried crackers and things like that. They would go and get seals and things like that. And then eventually they said, this ice isn't going to melt. So they tried to walk away from it. And of course they perished. Um, and then the ship sank, and it was only recently that somebody found the ship. And because the waters are so cold under there, it's really, really well preserved. I guess kind of like the Titanic, you know. So who knows? I mean, that might be a good place to set a novel too, with these dead sailors. Yeah.
yeah, they I'm trying to think. They were famous explorers. I actually read
Yeah.
about that. Yeah, that was quite
Yeah.
a story. Because I think it was like 3 years, wasn't it, that they
Yeah.
survived? And I
Yeah.
think actually one of them did survive to tell the tale, if I remember correctly,
Mhm.
or maybe
Yeah.
more than one.
I
But
think you're I think you're right. I think he was I think he was assisted by the people of the north, the Inuit. I don't think he ever made it back to Europe, but I think he was rescued by the people of the north, and he told them about his life, and then that was passed down orally. So that, it's still there's still a tradition of this guy being helped by the Inuit. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. And and we think about the Vikings. You know, they would sail back before there was really compasses or
Yep.
guidances. They would use the stars and crystals
Yep. Yep.
to guide them. And
Yeah.
so, yeah,
Yeah, and their ships were a lot smaller than the ones that later on, and they actually came. They came to North America before Columbus, discovered it as he claimed. Um, in Newfoundland, they settled in Newfoundland for some decades. There's still archaeologists who are finding Viking stuff there.
yeah.
Yeah.
I think it was Eric the Red that was so mean they sent him there to.
I think so. I think so. Yeah, and then of course there's Greenland, and your president is eager to get the resources from that. I don't know what's going to happen with that. I mean, it's an interesting time. Not
It
just in the
is.
United States, but in Canada too. There's more polar. It's a more polarized environment. I'm finding between right wing and left wing. Between you know Democrats and Republicans. We don't call them that
It,
here, of course, but it's polarized. Yeah.
we have other names for them too. Uh,
Yeah.
well, you know what I find so fascinating is that this man, they tried to, well, they impeached him. They've tried to jail him. They've tried to bankrupt him. They've done all these things to him.
Hmm.
He's still here. They hated him so much. They even tried to kill him. I won't say they, but
Hmm.
there was at least
Somewhat.
one attempt.
Yep.
And now it's like a switch has been flipped.
Hmm.
And I don't know if it's one of these like kiss the ring type of things. And
Hmm.
I've said this before, or if finally everybody's like, okay, he's not going to go away until he just lets this happen.
Yeah.
But it is so bizarre because
Mhm.
there was even a thing, what was it called? Trump derangement syndrome or
Oh, yeah.
orange man syndrome that they came out with this. It's like, but now it's almost like, hey, he's there.
Yeah. Yeah. Work with him. Try to, instead of, he's going to be there for the next 4 years, unless, I mean, he's what is he, 80 now? I mean,
I
who knows?
think he did turn 80. Yeah.
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 Yeah. Yeah. I mean, what you were describing reminds me a bit of, Rasputin, the Russian.
Mhm.
How would you describe him? He had so many roles in Russia with Catherine the
Yeah.
Great, I think, and then finally they wanted to kill him, and they tried poisoning him, and it didn't work, and they tried drowning him, and it didn't work, and just thing after thing after thing, he kept surviving it until finally, I think they shot him, and they had to shoot him, like 15 times before he finally died. He just
That's an
wouldn't go
idea
away.
for your book.
Yeah, yeah. Well, yeah. Remember, there was a song called "Rasputin" by Boney M. that I don't know, came out in the '70s.
Oh
Uh,
wow.
disco song.
Yes.
Yeah,
Yes.
yeah.
You're bringing back old rock and roll memories. I'm actually gonna have to email the program director and see if we have that in our lineup for the station. Now that you said that,
It's a good song. Yeah, yeah,
it's not bad at all. So the thing is now most people, if it's not Taylor Swift, they don't.
yeah, yeah. She was in Toronto not long ago, a few weeks ago, and it was just madness. And I think I saw something in one of the local papers just yesterday about how much money, how much tourism money she brought into Toronto because of her trip, and it was enormous. It was a
Yeah.
big benefit. Caused all kinds of traffic problems, but you know, there was benefits to it as well.
Yeah, she's very popular, and she's another one. I would love to get her on the show. She has a weird tick. She doesn't like to stay in hotel rooms, and when she goes somewhere, she'll either stay on her private jet
Uh huh.
or fly somewhere, and she has a home wherever she, like, if she was going
Oh, yeah,
to
yeah,
be here in Knoxville, she wouldn't go to a Knoxville hotel. She'd go to
yeah.
like a home she owns in Knoxville.
Sure,
It's like the
sure.
weirdest thing. So
Yeah,
not only is she's loaded, she's a land mogul. So
yeah. Well, I mean, if you got that much money, I mean, she has billions, I think. Um, yeah, yeah. I don't like going to hotels either. I always feel kind of weird in them. So although I was mentioning earlier on that I've gone to a lot of U.S. cities and have really enjoyed them, I'm still a homebody. I'm so glad when I get back home.
me
Yeah,
too.
yeah,
Me too.
yeah.
Yeah.
Chicago, that was another place. We just loved Chicago. I mean, Chicago, to my mind, it's like Toronto, but Chicago has done everything right that Toronto has done wrong. Like Toronto's
No,
not
no.
Ontario,
They've
and
got they've got guns in Chicago. No, no, no.
well, there is that, yeah. But like the Toronto waterfront, you can't get to it. They've built uh, the 401 highway, so it's like you're blocked away from this beautiful waterfront. Whereas in Chicago, the parts we went to anyway,
Mhm.
the lake is right there. That
Yeah.
beautiful, what do they call it? The Magnificent Mile.
Yep.
It's just brilliant. But
Buffalo
yeah,
is like that.
Buffalo, yeah, yeah. Buffalo, I think, has a really good art museum as well that we want to go to. And it's not far from here. We could drive to Buffalo probably in 2 hours.
The wings. Get the wings. So
Get get the wings.
the buffalo wings. Yes.
Oh, yeah, yeah, yeah. Of course, yeah, yeah,
Come on now, you're a foodie. So
yeah, yeah, yeah. Buffalo wings. Yeah, I do like wings. Yeah. In Chicago, we had the deep dish pizza, which was amazing as well.
you're gonna get one of my viewers. He's watching right now. Chris. He's a huge deep dish guy, and there's another one of my co-hosts. Sometimes they get a little carried away with a deep dish, and it's more of a biscuit than a pie.
Yeah, 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 yeah. I had in New Orleans, I had grits as well, and I for the first time, and they were good. I mean, they were actually served as a kind of sweet dish. Um, but yeah, I love trying different kinds of foods.
I'm not. I'm not sure which part Chris said he disagreed with, but he is my deep dish aficionado. So, well, yeah. In there's a story you were talking about stories behind foods too. There's the story behind wings
Yeah,
is kind of cool. I'm sure you've probably heard it where it was a late night snack and she didn't have anything left but these little wings.
yeah, yeah, and yeah, and now they're so popular, you just wonder how did they get that many chickens, you know.
Yeah.
But yeah, the origins of food words. I guess we're on late enough right now that I could give you an example. Like the word avocado, for example, comes from a language, from sort of Central America. The language I believe is called Nahuatl, and in that language, the word avocado means testicle. Because of its shape, but I mean the size seems a little surprising. But yeah, there's a just give you in that same vein. There's a German food called Liebesnocken, which literally means bone of love, and it's a cake shaped like a penis with almonds at one end to represent testicles, and it's served as a kind of fertility food, um, like an aphrodisiac almost. So yeah, foods. I mean, almost every food has a really really interesting origin, maybe with the
Have
exception
you?
of egg.
Yeah. Chris said he was disagreeing with the part about Chicago doing
Oh
everything
yeah,
right.
well,
Yeah.
maybe, yeah, yeah.
Well, you sound like you need to come out with a cookbook.
Yeah, I sure I do love cooking. I mean, I'm not a baker. You have to follow recipes so carefully when you're baking, I think. And I'm more of a pantser, like I was saying, by the seat of my pants. So I love making like stews and soups and things like that because, you kind of can't go wrong. Once you've practiced enough, you know what goes well together and how to make a good stew. I love making chili too. Best chili I ever had though was in San Antonio. These big hunks of not ground beef, but big hunks of
Yes. Steak.
sirloin. Yeah, steak. Yeah, yeah, and really hot. Had a really rough flavor. Like I mean that in a good way. Like
Mhm.
yeah, yeah,
Your
really.
texture, yeah, yeah.
Yeah, yeah.
And then you go to Ohio and they have skyline chili, which
Oh
I'm still not sure what that is. I don't know if you've ever had that, but
no, no. What's it like?
it's uh it's basically Texas feet and ground beef with ginger.
Ginger.
And yeah, it's the oddest and they serve it over spaghetti.
I would try it.
I'm not gonna say in the restaurant it's not bad. I mean, but yeah, it's not my cup of tea, but
Yeah. No, what was the name of it again? What kind of chili?
Sky Skyline chili.
Skyland
Uh,
chili.
no,
Okay.
line like Line,
Oh,
Skyline.
okay, okay, okay. Yeah, I'll look that up. That sounds interesting.
Yeah,
Huh.
yeah, it's unique and it's got really spicy, but it's the ginger, and
Hmm.
that's their secret ingredient. Of
Yeah.
course, talking about traveling, when I first went to Canada, I wasn't quite sure what they were asking me what they wanted to put on my French fries.
Right,
It was
right,
like, "Excuse me, can you say that again? I'm not sure I understand."
right, right. Yeah, 'cause yeah,
I'm a redneck. I heard something totally different there.
yeah, there are some differences. When we drove down, we went through Windsor and then what's Port Erie, I think is the U.S. side, and we stopped at a drive-through restaurant, and my kids discovered that what when we what we consider to be iced tea is not what I guess in the U.S. is considered to be iced tea. To us, iced tea is sweetened, and I guess you got to ask for sweet tea in at least in some parts of the state. So basically, they just had
Yeah.
cold tea.
Below that Mason Dixon line is where you get the real sweet tea. Yeah,
Yeah,
that yeah.
yeah. And there's some other words too, like jelly donut. Like is that a word that you would use to refer? Okay, in
Mhm.
in Western Canada, those are called Bismarcks. Yeah, and in other
Okay.
parts of Canada, they're called Jambusters. Yeah, so there's a few
I can
a
see
few
that one. Yeah.
regional words. Yeah. But Bismarcks, I don't know why they're called Bismarck. There's Bismarck, North Dakota, of course, but that in turn was named after Bismarck in Germany, which was named after one of the chancellors way
Mhm.
back. Maybe he had a penchant for jelly donuts.
Pastries. Yeah. Well, I grew up and my mom was a pastry chef confectioner, so but
Mm,
i.e. that's why I'm a fat kid. So yeah, I know all about donuts. So yes,
yeah,
yes.
yeah, yeah, yeah. I love donuts too. Yeah.
Yeah. Yes. And you're right. There are so many weird variations in the South for Mardi Gras. They put like dolls, I think it is, in the cake. I'm trying to
Huh.
King's head cake, I think it's called.
Uh
Somebody
huh.
will correct me, I'm sure.
Uh huh.
But yeah, and it's like weird thing. And that was one thing when I was a flight medic and we traveled, I would always try it.
Hmm.
Whether we were over in the Middle East or even in Europe, I would try different things because A, I don't know if I'll ever be back, and B,
Hmm.
it's just kind of cool.
Yeah.
I didn't realize that, and somebody in the chat will probably get on me. A Philly cheese, I always thought it had provolone or American.
Hmm.
It's cheese. It's cheese whiz.
Is that right? Yeah.
If you want a
Poured on.
true Philly,
Yeah.
it's cheese whiz. Because
Yeah.
when we stopped at I want to say it was like Primo's. It was the place that makes the best uh Philly, or yeah, the best are the original Philly. And he's like, all right, and he's pouring. And I'm like, what are you doing? He's like, you said you wanted an original, and I'm like,
Mm.
what is that?
Yeah. Yeah.
It doesn't
Yeah.
even look like government cheese. What is
Yeah.
that?
Yeah. And food. I mean, food cultures are always changing too. Like even in the past 15 years, where I live, there was an influx of people from Syria. Because of all the conflict that was happening there. And Syrian food and Lebanese food is really really good. And so there's all kinds of shawarma restaurants that have opened up around here and in Toronto that are just so good. I just love shawarma and falafel. And then more recently, people coming from Turkey, and of course they have a great cuisine as well. The 1970s, Canada took in hundreds of thousands of people from Vietnam, because of, again, conflicts that were happening there. So I would almost say that in Canada, Vietnamese restaurants might outnumber Chinese restaurants. Even though Chinese restaurants have existed, much much longer in Canada. Yeah.
Hmm. Hmm. That is one nice thing about living in Atlanta. There is such a good selection of restaurants.
Hmm.
The only confusing part for me is when you go into a really good Chinese restaurant, and this is this is not a racist comment, but for some reason it's always, I want to say, Mexican workers or South America, where it's
Yeah.
not Asian workers. I'm like, what? I don't
Yeah.
understand.
Yeah. 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 Yeah, it's funny, and it all kind of comes together, and you get fusions. Like, well, actually, Vietnamese food is a fusion of the original Vietnamese cuisine and the French cuisine. So, if you have one Vietnamese food is beef satay, right? The satay is actually the French word sauté. When you sauté something, it's just a fancy word for frying something. But beef satay is from French. um, or the Indian food vindaloo. Um, it's actually it's not a Hindi word. It's not an Indian word. It's Portuguese. It's vin da lu. So it's wine with garlic that has been so incorporated into Indian cooking, kind of like curry and chutney in the
Mhm.
United Kingdom. They go crazy over it. I mean, it's so popular there, and I love it too.
I'm not. I can do little bits of it. Not
Yeah.
can't go too carried away with it. So,
What about Ethiopian food? Have you had that?
um, it seems though when we traveled to the Middle East.
Yeah.
No, wait a minute. Maybe we stayed in Egypt, so probably not. No.
Okay. Okay. It's
So,
served on it's served on a really big tray, and on the tray is this bread called injera, which is kind of tart, and then they create little stews that they call wats, and they put it all over the bread, and
ooh,
then you don't use cutlery. You pick up a piece of bread and then you scoop up some of the stew with it. It's really really good. It's probably my
ooh,
favorite kind of food.
that sounds very good. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, I'll say I know. So I've been to Kuwait, Qatar,
Mhm.
Egypt. I don't know, but yeah, I want to say for some reason we went to Iraq, but I don't know
Mhm.
that that was right. I know we were in Afghanistan and
Hmm.
we didn't leave a military base there, so
Yeah.
we had
Yeah.
American food.
Right, right, right. Yeah.
So,
I had sheep brain in Riyadh once. I just had to try it. There was a buffet, and I'm going along, and most of the food I really, really enjoy. And then there was this one silver dome, and I thought, what's under there? And I opened it up, and I thought, that looks like a brain. It had all the convolutions still, and somebody said, yeah, that's just a steamed sheep brain. And so I tried it. I also had camel milk there.
I have had camel milk, but I have not had the brains. And what is the other? Is it the eye of the sheep or the
Oh,
goat
I've heard that.
or
Yeah, I've heard
yeah?
that.
Yeah, one of my buddies in Secret Service was telling me that was a custom when they would get assigned to go over there, they would
Yeah.
have to eat that, and he said it was like eating a juicy M&M that crunched.
Oh, yeah, yeah. The goat eye. Yeah, I think it's a goat eye. Yeah. Yeah, I mean, I'm pretty adventurous, but there are some things I wouldn't try. I don't know if I could eat a reptile, I'd like, I don't
Yeah.
crocodile meat, is that down south? Do people eat
Well,
or
yeah, yeah,
alligator, not
yeah.
crocodile.
Alligator tail is actually really good. There's a place down maybe in Key West where you get wings and tater or wing. What do they call it? Wings and tail. Wing, that sounds like a strip club. Where it's all it's like all hot sauce together and it's
Yeah.
served and it is delicious. Yeah.
Huh.
Well, in the South, we would fry anything in the South. We fry ice cream for God's sake. So
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, fried bread, yeah, yeah, yeah. Huh.
yeah. And now you talk about you saying that my grandmother growing up made tomato bread pudding.
Hmm.
And that was the weirdest thing. You said that, I had a flashback. I remember that. So,
I've never
um,
heard of that. Like, have you heard of shoe fly pie?
mhm.
Yeah, that's very
I,
popular around here. Yeah.
I know I would have to ask my mom because she's the chef if I've had that because I'm not sure. She's listening downstairs, so she's going to throw something at me. I joke with her all the time, and when you grow up, you have mom's famous meatball or
Yeah.
mom's famous spaghetti or whatever.
Yeah.
I have like mom's famous donuts or mom's famous chocolates. I'm pretty sure I grew up feral, but I don't know that I'll have to ask her if we've had that.
Yeah. It's very sweet. I mean, it's mostly brown sugar and probably flour, maybe vanilla. You don't want to have a big piece of it, and it's good with coffee. It's good with something that's a bit sour.
She's gotten on a kick here of recent Kentucky bourbon cake, which is like
Okay.
a huge pound cake that I mean it's not a pound cake, it's the round one.
Yeah, like a bunt
It,
cake.
but yeah,
Yeah.
and it's so heavy, and it's funny. I kid her, she's like the Swedish chef. A little of this, a little of that. I'm
Uh-huh.
like, so yes, vodka for some bourbon for you, some bourbon for the cakes.
Yeah.
This is very good though. I'm before I get back to Atlanta, I'm going to weigh 500 pounds. So
Yeah, that's home cooking. Yeah. Yeah.
yes, yes.
Speaking of bunt cake, that word bunt, bundt, comes from a German source that means crown. Because a bunt cake it's like a big donut. It's got the hollow in the middle, so that the cake bakes from all sides. So that's another example of a food word with an interesting origin.
That's yeah, yeah. You're gonna have to come up with a recipe book. So
Yeah, yeah. Maybe once I retire, maybe I will. Yeah.
do we ever retire, or do we just kind of one day go, I'm not going to work today?
Yeah, that's kind of what's well, I mean, on December or January 1st, I switched from full time to half time. Um, because I wanted to spend more time writing, and I was a little worried about it. I mean, worried about it in terms of having half the salary, but also worried: am I really going to be able to make use of this time, or am I going to feel like I'm at loose ends? But it's going really well. I mean, I'm really enjoying it. And then my goal is in another year to fully retire, and then spend the rest of my days writing, reading.
Well, I've told you I'm a firefighter paramedic, or was. I'm. They put me out to pasture, medically retired me, so I'm just discovering what it means too, and that's how I'm getting to meet that. And aside from my love of the paranormal stuff, how
Hmm.
I have gotten to meet so many really nice people like yourself, because in a real life,
Hmm.
I don't know that I would ever. I mean, I doubt I would have ever flown up to Canada, picked you up on a plane, but
Well, I love talking to people, wherever I go, and it drives my kids crazy sometimes. But I think almost everybody has an interesting story,
mhm.
and yeah, I really enjoy. Even though I'm quite introverted, I do like talking to people wherever I encounter them. Yeah.
Some one of my teachers told me one time, a long time ago, you can learn something from everyone,
Yep.
even if you don't like them,
Yep. Yep. That's so
and it's
true.
so true. It
Yep.
is. It
Yep.
is.
Yep. Yeah.
So
And I think
I
too,
enjoy it.
if we can learn each other's stories, like if we can hear each other's stories, that's how we understand. I think I mean there are people in the world who are evil, but most people who are in conflict, they just have to listen to each other and find out why this person is feeling this and why that person is feeling that, and then they go, oh, okay, I can sort of see that.
Mhm.
So yeah, I think it's so important for people to learn each other's stories, and
Absolutely.
then empathy comes out of that.
Yeah. And even as a paramedic, one of the things that I learned is there's a little bit of good in everyone.
Hmm. Hmm.
And I'm saying that in a big brush pattern. I mean, obviously, there's people that do bad things, and I've taken them on ambulances and stuff, but
Hmm. Hmm.
there's still, I think, a little bit of good of everybody. And if you try and see that, I think if we all tried to do that, the world would be a better place. But
Hmm. Hmm.
I'm getting philosophical now. What do I know?
Yeah,
So,
yeah. No, I agree. I do think you could take I don't know. Maybe this is too political. Let's say Osama bin Laden. I honestly believe that over time, maybe it would take decades, maybe it would take hundreds of years, but talking with him, I think that I do think that everybody is aiming towards goodness, and I think that with enough time and enough support, everybody can arrive there. I think it's very rare that there's somebody who's just bad to the bone, to use that expression. Yeah.
Yeah, very few Hitlers in this world.
Yeah, exactly.
So,
Yeah.
Mark, I just looked at the time and I realized I've kept you over. Um, Thank you for allowing us to come into your life for just a brief period of
Oh,
time.
thank you. Thank you.
Um, and I want to make sure before we get out of here, you tell everybody where they can find you if they want to get in touch with you.
Sure.
And most importantly, you're obviously here to sell your book to make a living. I want you to tell everybody where they can find your stuff.
Yeah, well, again, the book is called The Headmasters. It's a young adult dystopian um novel, and you can get it on Amazon. What's the other, Barnes and Noble? That's another big
Mhm.
bookstore down there. Any local, a lot of people quite rightly like to support their local bookstore, and they can order it in. So yeah, it's widely available. It's not hard to get. And it's available in ebook as well. That's all of my reading I do on my Kindle now. I just love it.
Me
Yeah.
too. Me too. So, because I would run out of, especially now that I'm doing shows, and a lot of times the authors will send me books
Mhm.
as gifts or before the show even,
Yeah.
and I would have so many.
Yeah.
my, my wife would be throwing out not only me and my clothes, my books. So,
Yeah. 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 The Kindle is
well,
great.
Mark, you say you're writing another book.
Mhm.
When you get it done, make sure you get in touch with me because I'd love to
Well,
have you back on.
sure. Yeah.
Um,
Love to. Great.
Mickey is going to be hooking me up with a lot of different guests,
Mhm.
and I have enjoyed making his acquaintance, and I've gotten to know so many really cool people through
Yeah.
him.
Yeah. Mickey Mickelson. Yeah. The marketer. Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah. Promoter.
yeah,
Yeah. He's really great. Does such a great job of hooking authors and other people up with media. It's really great.
yeah, yeah, and as we're learning in today's society, culture, whatever, this is the new form. The
Mhm.
podcast and the
Yep.
small. I joke. I'll say I got two listeners, but it's really much bigger than that. But it helps get your message to places that
Yeah.
you might not.
Yep.
And I
Yep.
think it's a really cool format and medium. So,
Yep. Yep. Yep.
um,
It's really good. Yeah, and it's one of the good things I think that came out, or at least was accelerated by the pandemic. Everybody started using Zoom and tools like that.
okay, yeah, yeah. Um, okay. Well, let me get out of here before I break. I got somebody sent me some breaking news.
Okay.
Mark. Um, and that's not his normal show, but apparently there has been a tragedy out on the West Coast. And I'm getting it through one of my reporters, a firefighter. Apparently, a commercial aircraft liner has crashed
Oh no, gee.
out in Washington State. So I'll be following that during the show.
Yeah.
Not to end on a sad note, but
Yeah.
yeah, and my other guest is coming in as well. She's got some really cool Bigfoot stories. Um, Mark, I do want to talk to you about your next book. And hey, if you have a spare copy of your book you want to ship to Atlanta, let me know.
Sure.
So
Okay. 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 Thank you so much for having me. Really enjoyed this conversation.
I did too, Mark, and I really enjoyed the food part. I know my mom's going to grill me when I get done, so I
Grill
may have
you.
to email you for quite exactly. have a have a
Okay.
nice night and
Yeah.
take your cold weather back.
Yeah. Yeah. We'll get it back here. Okay. Have a great night.
All right, Mark. Talk to you soon.
Bye
All
bye.
right. Good night. Okay. All right. That was Mark. Mark was great. Yeah, I really enjoy having the authors and guests, and we have a couple agents that send us some people. And yeah, I was just getting a breaking news that American Airlines passenger jet has struck a helicopter and there was a huge fireball. Apparently it was on takeoff, and the crash is in a river. So that's all I know on that. I will keep following that. In the meantime, I hate to segue because it's a horrible segue. Robin, our next guest, we've been going back and forth for a while now talking about Bigfoot, and she goes to conferences and she speaks about Bigfoots. She has personal experiences. Is that? I'll ask her. She has a communication that's different than most with Bigfoot. So let's bring her in here. I'm glad to get her in here finally. I've been trying for a while. Robin!
Hey, I have been trying to get on and it would not let me, no matter what I did.
Wait, you know what? You also talk about aliens, and a lot of times, I was going to say something, but I'm not going to jinx myself.
Oh, I get messed with all the time.
Whenever we talk about aliens, pardon my expression, but shit goes crazy.
You know what? I will go to do different shows because I deal with all the cryptids. I deal with the ETs. I deal with the ghosts. I deal with the spirits. I do psychic work and, portal work and all of these things. And when I go on certain shows, it literally, everything messes with me. Like today, I had things pounding on the side of my house all day long, setting the dogs off. Like I'm actually out in the car. I apologize for all the darkness, but I tried really hard to do it in the house like I normally do. And I've got stuff pounding on my walls outside of my room. And and I've got several dogs and they're going crazy. So I let them outside thinking they would keep them busy because they'll go out there and play with my dogs. And then the dogs were still screaming outside and bothering the neighbor. I mean, it's just been craziness. So I came out to the car thinking it would help. And it's just been nuts.
Wow. So now, if you don't mind, what part of the country do you live in?
I was born and raised in Michigan. I'm currently in South Carolina, but I'm in the process of moving to Texas. So this has been going on since I was very, very small. So this is like my normal. My normal is abnormal. Like I wouldn't know what to do with a normal day. I really wouldn't.
Do you think that these entities, Bigfoot, and do you think they follow you, or do you think you're?
Oh yeah. Yeah, but it does, it's funny because when I moved from Michigan to South Carolina, there were a couple of them that did come and it showed up here. But then I've got 3 or 4 other clans that run through here as well. It's just wherever I go, they end up finding me. It's just normal. And the UFOs, I was going to try. I didn't know if you had a way to do pictures because I've got like a great UFO video that MUFON just went nuts over. My son-in-law took at my house. And then I've got, pictures of the crafts, and I've got Sasquatch pictures and Dogman pictures and, all these crazy things. So, and, I've had so many people that have been with me that have seen them at the same time. So it's like, it's not paranoia. It's not just me. A lot of people have witnessed it when they're around me. It just tends to follow me.
Well, yeah, a lot of people do claim that, you're just seeing things or whatever, but I have been out in the woods. I've experienced the Bigfoot.
Mm-hmm.
Pretty sure I've seen a UFO. Don't know.
Oh, yeah.
So I don't believe that. What do you think these things are recently we've been seeing up and down the East Coast?
Well, the drones are not UFOs. Okay. Anybody that's seen a UFO will realize that when you see these crafts, I've been an abductee my whole life. I work with abductees as well. And when you see these crafts, it's almost like they came out of a mold. You don't see bolts. You don't see brackets. You don't see seams. It's like one major piece and it's all the same.
It's all smooth.
Yeah, it is. It's all smooth. You don't see any types of a bolt or a screw or anything like that. And, a couple other things with these drones. If those were ETs, our government would be all over them. They would have been all over them. There were some people that actually went outside and shot at them. If those were ET crafts, they would have been retaliated on. They are not going to sit there and let you shoot at them. That's not going to happen. And I did see a couple of the videos where it looked like lasers were coming down, and not that doesn't happen with the crafts. They've done that before. But there's just so many things that tell you that that's not an ET craft.
Yeah,
It just,
absolutely.
I'm sorry, I'm just not buying it. Now, do
Well,
I
no,
think that ET crafts have come in to watch those drones? Yes, I have seen footage, and those are actually legitimate crafts that are watching them. But those drones themselves are ours.
yeah, I would think our government, even, I mean, I think I said this on one of our shows. We're Americans. We like to blow shit up.
That's exactly true.
If it was something, you know, a Russian, Chinese, whatever, another country sending aircraft over, we would
Yeah.
shoot at it. Why wouldn't we shoot at it if we really didn't know what it was? You know.
Well, yeah. I mean, we kill what we don't understand. It's like the government hunts the Sasquatch. You know, you've got people that think that they're an animal. For the record, they're not. Worked on the DNA study. I've collected DNA from them. I know what they are. And I've been working with them since I was a very, very, very small child. You know, you're talking about something that has its own language, has its own laws, has its own culture. You know, I speak telepathically with them. I speak verbally with them. I've had them up close, you know, where, you know, I've had them put their hands on my shoulder, hands on my wrist, you know, or come up within 10 feet of me. It's not like I walk outside, just for the record. I don't walk outside and they all come up to me and shake my hand and start talking and want to have dinner. It doesn't work like that. Okay.
They don't want to treat.
Yeah, it doesn't work like that. It really doesn't. I mean, when I was in Michigan, they would tap on my window and knock on my wall of my bedroom every night at 2 a.m. And I don't recommend this for people because my clan was really good and I didn't have anybody to go to and say what's safe and what isn't. So I did a lot of things that I would never recommend to my people that I work with, my clients, never. And they would knock on my walls and tap on my window because they wanted me outside, and I would go out in the woods with them. Okay, that is the dumbest thing ever because you don't know exactly what's out there, and I just have never had a huge fear of them. Now, I've dealt with the bad ones and they have scared me at times, but normally on a normal basis, cautiousness, yes, but you know, it like to see them because they look so different. The looks of them that part doesn't scare me. You know, I read, huh?
When you say that you started at a young age, are we talking like teenager or?
No, I could mind speak before I could talk. And my mom said by the time I was starting to talk, I was talking about what she thought were imaginary friends. And I described them and it'd be the same thing as a dogman and a Sasquatch. You know, and they do have cloaking capabilities. I mean, I know how they do it. They've taught me how they do it and, you know, told me how they do it. These are high frequency beings to begin with. They are part human, but they're high frequency.
Ron Moorhead talks about the quantum Bigfoot. I'm sure you've.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Ron's amazing. I know Ron. He's wonderful.
Yeah, I had him on a long time ago. I need to get him back on. I've read his book and I agree with a lot of his.
Yeah, I do too. Yeah, I think
philosophy, whatever, but I think he's right.
I think Ron is one of the best we have. I'll be honest with you. Not only is he an incredible human being, just on a human level, he's highly intelligent. The Sierra Sounds, in my opinion, are the best vocals that we have out there. You know, I mean, even when they were fighting over the bear meat, that's what they're yelling about. But like for myself, they told me how they cloak. They do two things. They do a cloak and a shimmer. The shimmer looks like the movie Predator, where the cloaking is 100% transparency. Okay? These are high frequency energy beings. That's what they do. And they vibrate. Now, if you look at a hummingbird, when it goes to a hummingbird feeder and it's eating, you see its head, you see the body, you never see the wings. It's because the wings are flapping and they're vibrating because that frequency is so high, they become transparent. That's exactly what the Sasquatch does. Like I flat out asked them, I've asked several clans and they told, every one of them has said the same. And they're like, we just bend the light. You know, we do it with frequency and we vibrate. That's what we do.
So they're literally just that makes sense.
Yeah, that's what they do.
A lot of sense. Interesting.
You know,
now, when they zap you, what is that?
They are simply gathering the energy and frequency in their body and throwing it at you. I teach in my business, I teach frequency and energy work. And we talk about that a lot. You know, what they do is they're taking that frequency and energy within their body, taking control of it, and they're literally throwing it at you just like a lightning bolt.
like your chi, so to speak.
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay. That makes sense.
They're pulling it right from their own body and just throwing it. We all have frequency, energy, and light in our body. Okay. Our bodies are 3-dimensional. All they are is a housing unit. They're basically worthless. But your body is combined of frequency, energy, and light, and your consciousness. And so when you learn how to use that frequency and the energy, there's really not a lot you can't do on a paranormal spectrum. And you're going to go out of that. Once your frequency is high enough, you go out of the 3D bodies and you start working in a 4 and 5D, which right now in our world is essential. We're in the middle of a frequency shift, and everybody's going to have to get on board with it. Our bodies are going from carbon-based to crystalline-based. We're making a lot of changes, which is why a lot of people right now are emotional. They're up and down. They're all around. They're tired. They're hungry. They want foods they didn't want before, or, their bodies have changed. And there's just a lot of things that are changing with us, and we've got to change with it. Our planet is going into that higher frequency.
And the poles are shifting. Yeah, exactly.
Oh, yeah. We've got solar flares all over the place. Even when we have a full moon, it's stronger than it was before. We are now in an era of the new Earth. So a lot of things are going on, and it's essential that we move into this higher frequency. Our planet cannot survive if we don't.
Now, these beings, are Bigfoots and ET separate, or are they somehow intertwined?
They are intertwined. And I did work on the DNA study with Dr. Melba Ketchum. And so before I explain this, I want to make this part clear, because this is not, what I'm going to tell you is not from the study. Okay, scientifically speaking, the female side which is the mitochondrial side, had human DNA encompassed in it. The male side is listed in the paper as unknown because we have nothing to compare it to in GenBank or anywhere else. The government has it all. We don't have access to it. Okay, so take away the study, because nothing I'm going to say from this point on is coming from the study. This is from me. This is what they taught me. I went right to them before I ever knew about the study. And I said, what are you? Like, people are fighting over you constantly. And I had 3 of them I was talking with one night, and I was outside with them. And they pointed to me and they said, we're human like you. And then they pointed to the sky and said, and star people. Now, aliens, star people, whatever you want to call them, are also high frequency being. When you tap into these higher frequencies, there's literally not a whole lot you can't do once you get out of that 3D spectrum. You've got to get into the paranormal spectrum, whether it's 4th dimension, 5th dimension, or higher. These beings are even higher. They're much, much higher than that. I mean, much higher. And so part of them does come from star people. Now, I have some of the Sasquatch that will say, we're human like you and star people. I have another clan that I work with a lot, and they say, no, we're children of God and human. They're actually both right, because if you read in the Bible, it says God created the heavens and the earth, which means everything that is encompassed in it, and that includes ETs. Not all ETs are bad. There's quite a bit of them that are very kind. Actually, we have a lot of them visiting our planet right now that are good. We have a lot of them that live on our planet that are good. But we also have the bad ones. I'd had to deal with both of them. And the bad ones are a mess. So you have, both sides of that. So when I have some that tell me, well, we're star people and children of God, yeah, they're right. And then I have others that say we're star people and human, they're right too. They both, either side, there's human on the mother's side, and on the father's side, they can either say they're children of God or star people. It's going to come down to the same thing. And that's where they get these abilities. These abilities are intense. People don't realize the stuff that they can do. Like, I've physically seen it. I've had witnesses to it.
And is there more than, and let me, hold on one second here. So let me correct myself. Earlier in the show, I was informed it was Washington State. It is Washington, D.C. It apparently is a Black Hawk that has collided with an American Eagle jet. It's probably down on the 14th Street Bridge in the Potomac River. That is That is home for me. I am from Fairfax. So
Oh, I'm so sorry.
no, that's okay. We're going to continue our show, and everybody that's tuning in, because I know everybody knows I'm from DC and I do a lot of breaking news. As soon as we're done with the paranormal guys, we'll end the show, and then I'm going to flip right back over and I'm going to do a breaking news show. So everybody hang tight. Robin, we are not going to cut your segue because I have looked forward to this. That is a great tragedy in Washington, D.C., and I will address that soon.
Well, definitely
anyway.
prayers out for everybody involved with that situation.
Yeah, because, gosh, I was just talking to my wife about this. We grew up in Washington, D.C., and I can't remember. It was just a few weeks ago. It was the 40th, I think. They're saying my audio is low. It was the 40th, I think, anniversary of the plane that crashed into the 14th Street Bridge right after takeoff. So, yeah. What about dogmen? What do you think about is because I always thought that might be a different.
It's
like
just another cryptid
versus like a German. Is
yeah,
it Bigfoot, or is it a?
No, it's not a Bigfoot. They're a whole separate cryptid. I have a little bit different view on the dogmen than some people. A lot of people just think they're these awful, hateful things, and they're the worst that they can be. I've actually had some help me. I've had them around me. I have a picture of a baby up on a tree, and I don't have the problem with them that a lot of people do. Does not mean there aren't aggressive ones out there, but I think it's important to remember that the government created some of these dogmen too. And I've noticed that the government ones are highly, highly aggressive. You have some that are ET created, some that were born here, that, you've got them from all these different ways, and they're not all the same. And that's the same thing with the Sasquatch. You've got some that have been taken by the government and made these weird hybrids out of them, and those things are off the charts. Then you have some that can tolerate us. I mean, we're horrible to them. Let's be real. We're awful to all these cryptids. We really are. We kill what we don't understand. Rather than find out about them, we just try to kill them. And you've got some that just want to be away from us. I mean, they're going away from us so they don't have to deal with us, and then we chase them down. And then everybody gets upset when there's a confrontation. It's all about respect. Their ways are different than ours. Their culture is different than ours. Their laws are different. Their words don't mean the same as ours. They are not Nephilim. I hear that every single day. And let me tell you something. If you want to tick one off, tell them that they're Nephilim, and you will be on their enemies list for a very long time. Now, that being said, the government has created a lot of things. Is it possible that some of these highly aggressive ones were created by the government and have Nephilim DNA in it? It's very possible. I'm not going to say it isn't, but an actual Sasquatch is not Nephilim. Number one, because they are high frequency and high energy beings, they love at a much deeper level than we can ever hope to. They love harder when they're mad. Trust me, they're madder than we get. Every emotion is at a higher level, but they are very compassionate. They've saved my life 6 times. I know about the bad ones. I've dealt with the bad ones. I've been called out to areas where the bad ones are to help with that and kind of settle things down. And so I know how bad they can be. It's like land between the lakes. People head out there because they want an encounter. What they're not understanding is the dogmen and the Sasquatch that live in land between the lakes live there because they do not want to be near us. And then we go there and innocent people die.
Yep.
And then we want to kill them for killing them. Why are we there? Why did we go there in the first place? Let them have that little piece where they can stay away from us. And it would be much better, but we don't, because we just don't. We have to take everything over. I mean, I've dealt with bad ones before. I deal with a lot of good ones, of course. It's like the ones that I have in Michigan, the ones that I've had here, the ones that I work with in Texas, the ones that I work with in Louisiana are lovely. I've not had problems, but I'm respectful of their culture. I have boundaries, like we had a period where the adolescents were playing on my roof. And I have a 2-story house, but where my bedroom is 1 story. And they would get up there and they would play. It was like a frat house party on my roof every night. And I would tell them to get down and tell them to get down, and nobody would listen. I went to the parents. I'm like, I don't know whose kids these are. They need to get down. Nothing worked. I said, I'm going to go to your council. I will get hold of council, and I want them off my roof. And they would not stop. So I finally went outside one night and I did the mom voice. And I was like, you will. It was the dumbest thing ever. Like, why in the heck I ever thought they would listen to me? Like, you will get off this roof, and you will not get off because I can't. You're going to go through the roof and I can't sleep. And I haven't had problems with it. They probably just laughed at me.
That's well, did they get off the roof?
They did. But I had years ago in Michigan, I had 2 friends of mine were over at the time, and my one friend did an Indian smudge ceremony for 3 clans that had come in, and she did that, and it was over, and it's like 11, 12 o'clock at night. We're sitting in lawn chairs in my yard, and we're watching the Sasquatch walking around the yard and in the bushes and in the trees and everything. I had a Shetland pony, and the pony could not be put in a pen because he tore it down every time. So he was on a 250-foot boat rope, and he's out grazing in the backyard, and all of a sudden I see his rope lift up, and he's getting pulled into the woods. And he is like freaking out. He's rearing up. He's screaming. His eyes are white. And he was very comfortable with the clan that lived there. They played with him all the time. They were buddies. They would untie him and they would move him all over the property. It was like, where's Waldo? Every time I got up, he was moved somewhere else. And they have a certain way they tie their knots. So like he would be, in 1 minute, he would be moved somewhere else. It was like a where's Waldo? So this male was in the woods. He was from a different clan, and he's pulling him in the woods because he wanted the kids to be able to see the pony. He wasn't going to hurt them, but the kids wanted to see him. And like an idiot, I ran over and grabbed the rope, and I'm like planting my feet on the ground because, obviously I'm going to stop this thing. And I'm like, no, you can't have him. And I'm now going like I'm water skiing across the grass into the woods. It was hysterical. And the one friend looked at my other friend and said, you got to do something. You got to do something. She's going to get killed. And he's like, oh, no, this goes on here all the time. It's not a big deal. And so I'm getting drugged there. I got all the way. This thing was about 14 foot tall. He was massive. Like I'm 5'9.5", and I was like at his thigh level. And I'm looking at his feet. I didn't look up. I just looked at his feet, and I'm looking at, like mid-thigh. And he literally laughed. I heard a laugh, and then the rope went limp. He didn't do a thing to me, but I think he probably thought, you stupid little hairless human. Like, you are worthless. Like, what are you going to do? And but they weren't going to hurt the pony. He was just scared. But he liked my regulars. He would play with the regulars all the time. The ones here will play with my dogs. I know people talk about how they kill their dogs, and I would imagine that there are some that do. But what I say to people is, look at how our people are. We have murderers, we have rapists, we have pedophiles, we have psychopaths. They are not any different. They are a type of human. They are not our type, but they are a type of human.
Yes.
And so they do have mental illness. They do have all of those things. And we have people. I used to have an animal rescue. I have a dog that is 6.5 years old that was tortured by one of our type of humans to a point that a vet of 28 years said he had never seen anything as bad as that. I've had him 6.5 years, and I'm still the only person that can touch him. He doesn't growl. He doesn't bite. He lives in terror 24 hours a day. And that was done by one of our humans. So is there some that are aggressive to dogs? Yeah. But the thing to think about with that is I don't allow my dogs to run free. The Sasquatch get in the backyard with them all the time, which is fine. I don't mind. They do the belly crawl through the backyard with them, or they pick them up or whatever. But I don't allow my dogs to act aggressively with them. I don't allow them to run into the woods and chase them. In South Carolina, this is just, I'm not a South Carolina person. That's why I'm moving. But they drop hound dogs off in the middle of the road to have them run into the woods to run deer. I was born and raised in Michigan. That is taboo. You want to be evil? Run a deer. That is not how you do it. That is not how our forefathers did it. That is not what we do. So they would let them go in after the deer. But what would happen is they would encounter the Sasquatch and they would go after them continuously. And then these hunters, 9 out of 10 of them, if they don't run a deer out, they just drop the dogs off and they leave them here. And I end up with all these dogs running around that are hound dogs. And the Sasquatch were having a problem and it kept going after their kids.
Sure.
Now, I don't know about anybody else, but I would assume you guys would be the same way. If I have anything go after my children or my grandchildren, I will annihilate it. Yeah.
It's game on.
Yeah. It's annihilated. I had a coyote that ran through my front yard and ran right in front of my grandson. If I would have had a gun in my hands, it would have never made it out of the yard. And I am a major animal lover. I don't kill anything. I don't even kill ants. But if I were them, of course I would go after these hound dogs. And this persisted for a week. And they finally, I was in the house. I heard the barking going on. I got the mind speak and they said, we have to kill it. It almost got one of our children. It was a little girl. She was 4 years old. And they went after this little girl. And they said, we don't have a choice anymore. And I said, that's fine. Just get the bodies out of here because everybody's going to be looking for you. I heard them when they killed those dogs. It was horrific. But I couldn't say that I blame them. If those dogs would have been going after my children or grandchildren, that would be it.
Yeah. I have a friend that they were in Uari National Forest, and there were some raccoons fighting with the Bigfoot trying to get its food.
Mm-hmm.
And supposedly you could hear all of a sudden this deep growl and then the raccoon fighting again. And then you hear this pop. And then no more raccoon sound.
Yeah. And the thing of it is they will use all the animals in the forest as pets. And when I lived in Michigan, and everybody talks about should you feed them or whatever, you really shouldn't on a regular basis. You can give them treats, you can put food out. But again, at that time, I didn't have anybody. I mean, nobody was around to teach me any of this stuff. I just did it on my own. And I was very much integrated with this clan. So I fed them, and I fed them a lot. I mean, every day. And they knew what time it was to come get food. And they would come up to the house and they'd get their food. And they started having these raccoons. There's 3 raccoons. And I had up by my house, I had all these buckets hanging from trees and all these different things for them to get their food. And they would send these 3 raccoons in. The raccoons would check all the buckets for food, never touch the food. They knew better. And then the biggest one would go to the top of the tallest tree, look over the direction that the Sasquatch came in and scream and make a noise. And then it would come down and they'd go off the other way. And then all the Sasquatch would come in. And this went on every single night. Like, these things were trained impeccably. And the only night that I ever really missed, I got hung up at church with my kids, and I normally fed around 5 or 6, and we didn't get home till 10:30. I came home, they had unsnapped the buckets because I had them on snaps on the tree. They had unsnapped the buckets, took them to my front porch and put it upside down. Like, you stupid woman, what is wrong with this picture? And I looked at my kids and I'm like, I want you guys in the house. I will feed by myself. I don't want you out here. And they were a hooting and a hollering. They did nothing. They were never, they never tried to do anything. They just made sure that I knew they were unhappy.
Protest. Lord.
Oh my gosh. The stuff that they've done, it's just insane.
Yes, we're going to have to get you to come back when we do need to get the audio and video stuff, because I would love to have that.
Oh, absolutely. Let me know, and I will send it over to you so that you can put in whatever format you want.
Okay, cool. Yeah, I am actually, because my phone is dinging, the thing is dinging, everybody's asking what's going on. So, let's get you rescheduled, and then, I want to upload that and see that as well. Because
sure.
I also have some stories that I want to share with you about my personal experience in the woods.
Oh, I'd love that.
Yeah, I've seen them in 3 states. So, it's kind of cool.
Yeah, there's no place that they can't be.
No,
there's no place. I mean, I have clients that are in Hawaii that have seen them.
Oh, wow. My mom actually swears here in Tennessee that one was in the house with her. I don't know if I would buy that, but
oh, I do. I've had it happen enough times. I do. Tell her I believe her completely. I've had it happen too many times. And let me tell you, the cleanups, I've only had them really make a mess a couple of times. Generally, it's not too bad, other than giant muddy footprints and handprints.
Okay. All right. Well,
My granddaughter saw one the other day. She said to me, she said, Grandma, she said, somebody came in the house. And I said, what do you mean? And she said, I don't know. It was tall. It was all covered in black. And then it ran out the front door. I'm like, okay. And things were all messed up. So I had to believe her. So
new meaning to tall, dark, and hairy.
yeah, exactly. It is not, my life is not normal. It's not normal. But I wouldn't change it.
I love it. I love it. That's why I did this. That's why I love the paranormal and the.
Oh, it's phenomenal. I'm blessed.
I was gonna say the first Bigfoot experience I had was in Washington D.C., just outside of Washington. Well, just outside of Washington D.C., North Virginia. I don't know if you've ever heard of the Mount Vernon monster. That was what was growing up in our neighborhood, and that was my first experience. And we had watched the Patterson film in elementary school, I guess, and I was fascinated. And you know, you get older and you kind of let things go. You have kids, you get a job, and all this. And then one day I was like, I've been camping for like 25 years. Let's go camping. And it just picked right back up. So it's been a passion. I don't know if you know Bob Grumpy Wilson. He was a mentor. Oh no. Yeah, he was big here in the South, and had a lot of contacts, and I got to meet him, and taught me more than anybody. I mean, he has a lot of experiences, probably like you. They like to mess with him. And when I say mess with him, it wasn't like mean necessarily. It was like being coy or playing games.
Yeah.
And stuff.
Oh yeah. They have a very bizarre sense of humor. They're major pranksters, you know. It's like I was really sick recently, and I had went out in the other room to go let my dogs outside, and I came back and they had bird feathers on my nightstand.
Oh.
Like, well, there's no way for birds to get in my bedroom, so this is really cool. You know, I mean,
Bob was the first person to basically teach me that I don't want to say that I was crazy, but that, you know, there was more out there. He had a job with California Search and Rescue as I guess, sheriff's deputy. Where
he would have had a lot of experiences.
Oh yeah, that's how he got to know so much. He would be dropped in the woods, him and his dog, to find lost hikers by helicopter.
Yeah,
and he's out in the middle of, you know, the real woods, not like we have here in the South. And so he had so many stories, and he educated me. So yeah,
that's incredible.
And he actually had stories of where they would help him find the lost hikers.
Yeah. And they're good at it.
That blew my mind. I was like, but they're not from around here. You know what I'm saying? So I was like, where they help us? But he taught me a lot. And I think there's more out there than we really as humans know.
There are so many out there. So many out there. We are loaded with it. I mean, the entire globe. There's nowhere that they are not.
I agree. You know what? I think what me and you need to do is we just need to have a special 2-hour and cover everything ET, everything Bigfoot, everything.
Just let me know when.
I would love it. And I'm sorry I'm cutting you off.
No, you're fine. Well, it took me a half hour to get on. So, I mean, it wasn't your fault. I would go on and it would put me in a room, but it wasn't your room. So I would be in this studio room by myself. Nobody else was there. But there was no button to do anything. And I mean, it was terrible. And I'm like sitting here and I'm like, okay. And then it would say, go in Chrome. So I would go in Chrome and it would say, please go back in Chrome. And I'm like, I'm in Chrome. You know, it was just, but this is typical. I'm not unaccustomed to it. So
it's like I was telling you, I've had that happen before. One of the guys, I was sitting here talking to him and we were talking about ET stuff, and I see this like little silver ball fly out of a screen and go past his head. And I didn't say anything for a second or two. And finally I was like, did you happen to see anything? He's like, yeah, I wasn't going to say anything. I didn't know if you saw that too.
Yep. Like, what I'll do is I'll start getting some pictures for you. I have one. It's above and it's circled, so you'll see it. It's 3 dots, which is actually a UFO craft that was above my garage. But underneath of it is an open portal. And coming out of the portal is a head. You can see the eyes and the nose.
Yes.
It was taken by my
Okay.
security camera. So I'll get those together and start sending them over. If I forget to do it, just message me and say, hey, ding that, send it over. But I'll get some, and I'll get some of the Sasquatch ones. And like I said, I've got the baby dogman that's up in a tree. It looks like a German Shepherd up in a tree, but it was like 40 foot up in a tree.
Wow.
Well, it was his fault because I had just moved in and I was laying down, but it was still daylight out. And he wanted me to come outside. I do energy work. They love to pull energy off me all the time. And he said he wanted me to come out so he could see me. And I said, why? And he said, I just want to see you. I said, no, you want to pull energy off me. And I said, I'm tired. I don't want to come out. And he said, if you come out, I'll let you take my picture. I said, if I go out there and you don't let me take your picture, you're a liar and I won't talk to you anymore. He said, okay. So I went outside, and when you take random pictures, you can get them while they're cloaked and they come up looking physical. There's ways to get pictures. And so that's what I did. I just took random pictures because then you're not focusing directly on them in the center of your camera because your camera's digital. And I got him up in the tree. And it's a very clear, it's a very clear picture. And I said, I did get your picture. I said, okay, so you can come back. You're not a liar. You're not bad. You're not Occam, which means bad. So I will let you come back. So he's a lot bigger now. But you have to understand too, with these dogmen, they all look different. Every Sasquatch looks different. Every cat person, I have a picture of a cat person. I have a picture of a lizard man. They all look different. They are all individualized. There's reason to believe we don't have the DNA from everything, but there's reason to believe that there's human in all of them because they are bipedal. And, look at us. We're all individuals. Unless you're, a genetic twin, we all look different. And people get very hung up on, well, it's supposed to look this way. It's supposed to look that way. That's a bunch of bull. My sister and I, my sister's blonde hair and blue eyes. I'm brown hair and brown eyes. We couldn't look more different if our life depended on it. So it doesn't work that way. They're individuals. They all have individual personalities, individual thoughts, likes, dislikes, all of it. I have some that love peanut butter. I have others that if you give them peanut butter, they're going to break the jar. They don't want it. I have some that will want things and I'll give them to them and they'll take them with no problem. And then I get down here in the South and they are forever asking for things. Then you give them to them and they're like, they'll want ginger or they'll want turmeric, however you pronounce it. And then I'll give it to them and they're like, take it out of the thing it's in. I said, you mean the jar? And they're like, yeah, we don't want that. And I'm like, if I pour it on the ground, it will dissolve. Yeah. Like, what do you want it in?
Have you had any Southern ones ask for an RC and a moon pie yet? Just
No, not yet. But the ones in Michigan, I could get them to take anything I gave them. And they would go back and forth. They would leave me gifts too. Usually it was a live possum, admittedly. I used to take the possums, take them about 5 miles away, let them out and say, just tell your friends, don't come back. Like, don't come back. You're going to end up, they would put them in various things. Yeah. And I'm like, just save yourself, And because, and they're like, well, you gave us food. We're giving you food. And I'm like, I appreciate it, but don't normally eat possum, but thank you. But they would take anything that I gave them. I come down here to the South and they are so picky. They are really picky. They're a lot different. They still want the interaction. It's not uncommon for me to wake up in the middle of the night and look at my window and there's a face pushed up against it. It doesn't faze me. I'm like, okay, no big deal. And I generally know which ones. Now, like today, I know which one was doing it today. I'm not quite sure why he was doing the hitting of my house. I was like sitting on my bed doing some paperwork for a conference that I'm helping run. And he's like beating on the wall. I don't know what was going on with him. There was nothing, that I was aware of that was bad that was outside, but he was like, knocking on the window. It's not uncommon to see them walking across the front yard. And when they go to cloak, if they don't cloak everything, you'll see like a body part moving across the front yard, which is very disconcerting to see a leg or an arm. I had one in Michigan. I had fed him. I put food out and there was a very large male that was not part of the clan. And he just showed up. He was just hungry. And he went in to get some of the food. And I walked outside on my porch because they came up to the house to eat. And I looked over there and I saw him and he looked at me and it scared him. So he cloaked, but he was one that had the conial head. He didn't cloak everything. So the top of his head which now looks like a yarmulke because that's the only part that didn't cloak. And as he's walking away, it looks like a little yarmulke going through the woods. I mean, I had one yell at me and tell me, quit looking at me. I said, then cloak. You can do it. Cloak yourself. You don't want me to see your hairy butt, cloak. Don't yell at me. Cloak it.
I love it. You sound like you put them in their place. You are like their moms.
Yeah. They're right. For the longest time, my Michigan clan called me mom because they would hear my children call me mom. My kids grew up with these things around them. Some of my kids were very immune to it, where they just like turned a blind eye and said, Mom, please don't tell our friends. And then I had other kids, because I had 9 children. And then I had other of my children that were like embraced it. They would go out there. My granddaughter, when she was 5, she would sit outside the woods and she would roll a rock into the woods and they would roll it back. And they would play that game for a while, back and forth and back and forth. My daughter would go outside and play a clarinet, and they would all come out of the woodwork to listen to her play the clarinet.
That's cool.
Yeah.
Robin, if anybody wants to get in touch with you, I'm going to put it in the show notes, but tell everybody just in case for the FM radio where they can find you.
If you want to locate me on Facebook, I'm under Robin Haynes. There is an account that says Robin L. Haynes. Do not use that one. I never get it. There's a problem with that account. So it's under Robin Haynes, Haynes. If you are looking to set up classes or have a psychic reading or any of those things, I have a website. It's called www.paranormal-empowerment.com. And you can find me there, or find me on Facebook and just say, hey, I want to set something up.
There you go.
I'm really informal.
Yeah, let's try and get you back in March, and we'll do a 2-hour show.
Sure. That would be fun. I would love it.
I think you and I'll have so much to talk about. So I'm looking forward.
Oh, yeah, I'm excited. Yeah, this is great.
It is. And like I said, I really have had a good time. So I'm going to let you go so I can get to this other stuff.
Absolutely. And again, praying for everyone.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Robin, have a great night. We will talk.
You too, sweetheart. And we will talk again. I'll send you some photos.
Yes, ma'am. Thank you.
Okay. Bye-bye. Thank you.
Bye-bye. All right. Bye-bye. Okay, everybody. That was a great show, and it will be, of course, on YouTube, and I will roll it over into Spotify. And I know everybody's hitting me up wanting to know more about the breaking news. Give me a few minutes. I'm going to end this show, and I am going to come right back. We'll be live on Yerg's Radio. I've already talked to Ross, got permission. We'll be live on Yerg's Radio, Rainbow Radio, and YouTube. I don't know where else I will be, but come to YouTube. I'm going to start bringing some scanner feeds up, some audios up, some graphics, and we're going to start reporting on this horrific news event that has taken place in the nation's capital. Everybody, try and have a great night. I will see you next week. We have a great show lined up for you. And until then, hopefully Miss Cheyenne or Miss Amanda will be back and we can get going. Everybody have a great night. I will see everybody soon. So come back for the breaking news.